Alright guys, so today I want to go ahead and look at this. This is how Who Dey Nation responded to the final cuts of the 53-man roster. And I'll be honest, you already know my opinions on everything. I've given Raymond Johnson III, I give timed grief over the loss of Raymond Johnson III from our roster. Owen Carney, obviously another really great player. I know a lot of people follow me, love Tanner Hudson. Trent Taylor and Stanley Morgan was another player that a lot of people were kind of surprised of the cut wise. Yeah, I think everyone else, Sidney Jones, I guess maybe some people were surprised. Nonetheless, though, let's go ahead and see what the tweets are and what people said. The main surprise I have for the 53-man roster is Trey Hill making it and Stanley Morgan being cut. I agree with that. Trey Hill, again, keep in mind, he made it as backup center, but I think someone made a really good point in one of my videos. They said that it's because the fact that Max Sharpen isn't currently good enough to play center. So, for example, this offseason and training camp and preseason, they put a lot of times they put Max at center because they want to see if he can become a good center, right? And he has not learned the position yet, and he hasn't mastered it. So they needed a backup center to take over and be that, second guy. So that's why they kept Trey Hill, even though Trey Hill has looked awful. I mean, if you looked at the play where Jackson Carman didn't move, we made a whole entire video about it. That was Trey Hill's fault at center. He's not good. So it is very surprising to see them keeping him. But again, it really comes down to the fact that they don't have another option at center, or backup center, I mean. So that's why he stayed on the roster. Now, keeping him over someone like Stanley Morgan, who's really good on special teams. He's a very consistent player on punt and kicks. My only guess to that is that they are expecting a lot from Chuck Sizzle and from Yoshi to really make an impact on special teams and replace his value and also replace Trent Taylor's value, right? So it's both of those guys were very surprised special teams cuts. They kept Travion Williams, who's really good on special teams. But yeah, no, both of those guys were definitely interesting. I thought they were going to keep 7 receivers, and I thought the 7th receiver was obviously going to be Stanley Morgan. But no, they ended up cutting him. He said, yup, didn't see Jay over Raymond Johnson and Jeff Gunner coming. That's definitely interesting, too. I mean, I know they love Jay, but it's the problem, as Coach said yesterday, with having an amazing roster, is that you have so many good players, right? That you got to cut down to 53 men, and it's not easy. It's almost impossible because there's so many players that could make this roster and be a really good asset. And that just comes down to that. It comes down to, again, Jay was a D tackle too, versus defensive ends of both of those guys. So that could be another thing. They want to get more D tackle, depth with DJ Reader in the last year of his contract. There's always stuff like that goes on. Losing Joseph aside to preseason injury over like 10 snaps and then cutting Raymond Johnson feels risky. Maybe they're confident RJ will be back on the practice squad. I'm not confident that Raymond Johnson there would make it to the practice squad. But I will say that, again, the Joseph Asai one, Coach just said it best. He said that he needed reps. That's pretty much that. But when it comes to them cutting Raymond Johnson, that's another reason why, if you see my channel, I made a video about how, yeah, he's probably going to make the squad. He's shown off how good he is. He's playing at a top level, and it is really surprising, especially with Joseph Asai being hurt. You would think that they would want someone on that roster that could play, if, again, Joseph Asai cannot play. Joseph Asai might be out on the PUP list. He might be out for 4 weeks. So you're going to have to replace his value. Now, I think what they're thinking is, well, we can replace his value by doing rotation purposes with Myles Murphy. And we can get him more play time where it's not like overdoing it, but it's enough that it's pretty solid for him. And I think that's kind of what their thought process is with that. Now, looking at Charlie's tweet, he said the Bengals kept as much offensive line depth as possible. The plan to protect Burrow also includes moves on the back of the roster. And the Bengals kept guys like Hill and Collins in the building to give themselves the best depth that they could. It's the best backup line they've had in Zach Taylor's tenure with the team. Okay, so let's break that down. First off, yes, they kept 10 offensive linemen. That's not including Lael Collins. The reason why they kept Collins is because, again, there is no real backup to Jonah Williams, and you want to have a backup. We saw last year in the playoffs that was a big issue / problem. So it makes perfect sense for them to, again, keep, Lael Collins. For the other guys, it was kind of strange with Trey Hill, but again, like I said, it's because of the fact you need a backup center. They also did keep Donta Smith, which I thought was kind of interesting. They let Hakeem go, but they kept Donta. The left tackles, they did keep, obviously, Jackson Carman. And they also kept Max Sharpen, which, again, makes perfect sense because they need to have as much backup as possible. I will say, overall-wise, their cuts for the offensive line and who they kept kind of made sense. And also Cody Ford, my bad. Let me not forget Cody Ford. As it says right here, Hakeem got cut, and who got cut was the Bengals swing tackle last season. With Donta Smith's emergence, Hakeem was competing for a spot with Jackson Carman. Carman's upside and athleticism gave him the head start. He got a lot more opportunities in the preseason. Carman clearly had the edge of the depth chart all summer as Hakeem got limited reps. However, Trey Hill over Hakeem is interesting. While Hill plays center, Hakeem is more experienced guard. Yeah, that's another thing that I'm kind of on the fence about because, again, yes, Hakeem, yes, he played right tackle last year in the, AFC Championship game, looked awful, but he's actually a pretty okay guard. And have a guy behind Kappa, a guy you could put in behind, let's say, for example, Volson, makes more sense than Trey Hill, who, again, is a center going to guard and looks good at guard so far, but I'm not sure that you can fully have confidence in him. The Bengals usually carry 4 defensive ends on the game roster with Joseph Ossai hurt. They have Hubbard, Hendrickson, Sample, and Murphy. They don't need to elevate someone from the practice squad, but they probably hope to keep some of their depth on the practice squad. Jeff Gunner, Raymond Johnson, and Owen Carney have all flash athleticism and impact. Bengals can keep 2 of them on the practice squad. They'll be in great shape. Yeah, I think they will end up getting Owen Carney back, and I think they will get Jeff Gunner back. One of the most interesting... How long is... Okay, I was just making sure it's not, too crazy long. One of the most interesting linear questions is if they bring in a third quarterback. Jake Browning was clearly the winner in the quarterback battle among the options the Bengals had. His command in the offense, his mobility, and his consistency in the quick game was a difference maker versus Simeon. Again, they did bring in a third quarterback in for the practice squad. I don't think they're going to bring one for the roster, though. They hold on to Travion Williams, even though he missed most of camp. Again, that is special teams, and it's also because they like him on third down rolls, and they like him, as a player overall wise. They think he has potential still. If a team sees potential in you, you're going to get a roster spot. Tight end is the biggest position to watch on the waiver wire. They have a track record of targeting platoon tight ends with certain roles that they're able to fill. They double up on blocking tight ends with Drew Sample and Drew last season. This year, they probably have a greater need for receiving threats if they want to add another option on the position. I think it's going to be tough because of salary cap and them having to pay Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. You don't really have much money to go sign another tight end. So I think that's why they kept Mitchell Wilcox especially. I feel like he can be that vertical threat tight end for them. The Eagles, Alberto, who they signed from the Broncos. Deal shows something interesting about the Bengals. The Eagles have upgraded their current roster by dealing picks for players like DeAndre Swift and Albert O. The Bengals, who are the exact same quarterback schedule / window as Philly, place more value on the third-day draft capital. This has been a theme for the last several years for a Bengals team that plays the long game over going all in. Okay. Next one we're going to react to is Bailey Zappi would fit the role of development backup if the Bengals wanted to go that route. Listen, the Patriots cutting all their quarterbacks was freaking weird. I was not expecting that either. I don't think anyone was expecting that. But I think Bailey Zappi would have potential and could do good on this roster, as a backup. I will say overall wise, I like Jake Browning. I'm a Jake Browning fan, so if you want to sign him to the practice squad, I'm okay with that. But I don't think, could he beat out Jake Browning for the roster? Absolutely. But I'm going to go with Jake Browning as an option. But Bailey Zappi is a choice. Now, that's now 3 straight Michigan wins over Ohio State as Crimson gets cut. Chrisman gets cut. Drew Chrisman. Yeah, it is what it is. If the Bengals cut Jay, like so many are predicting, that would be a huge mistake. They didn't. Smart move keeping that Burrow guy. Oh, yeah, no. That one, I think, was probably the best keep. I was kind of on the fence, though. I thought, like, maybe they should cut him, but I didn't know 100%. Please announce Burrow and Higgins contract extension next. Congratulations to Yoshi. Now I have a real reason to be a Bengals fan. We'll be watching and cheering for you. Awesome. Oldest player in the Bengals roster is Teddy K. Yeah, Tom Boyd loves that. Wide receiver Stanley Morgan Jr. and tight end Tanner Hudson among notable players that left the 53-man roster. I think Tanner Hudson comes back on as a practice squad, guys. A 53-man roster. Ooh, cool how they made that. Based on initial rosters, assuming no players claimed off IR, I think the following 5 will be inactive week 1 at Cleveland. Trey Hill, Devonta Smith, Joseph Asai. Yeah, I mean, these 2 guys are injured, probably going to be on the PUP list. And yeah. Former Cowboys quarterback Will Grier. Yep, he just signed with us, which is awesome. Announced Joe Burrow's contract already. I'm officially older than every Bengals player on the 53-man roster. Big picture from Zach Taylor. This is strong in 53-man roster, top to bottom. The Bengals should let Max also be the backup center and then release Trey Hill. 9 offensive linemen on the 53-man roster is enough. I agree. Max did look pretty good at center. Guys, tell me down below your thoughts and opinions. I'm definitely going to be interested. It was interesting. 53-man cut day is always interesting. Peace out.